Alright, what's up guys? Today we're going to do a review on the Bradley Maris, one day I'll get that right, Vector. This is actually number 26. This is kind of an older one. I think he's on number, I don't know, 110 now maybe. He's over 100 though. But I feel like there might not be any reviews, maybe one or two reviews on these Vectors. A lot of people have done reviews on Scouts, which I'm actually going to upload maybe before, maybe after this. I've got a Scout 2.0. And a lot of people know about the Scouts, but not a lot of people know about the Vectors, I feel like. And as you'll hear in my Scout review, I actually like the Vector more for a few reasons, which I'll touch more on in this review. We will do, let's see, I'll do a size comparison though. We'll get that out of the way. So you got the Vector, you got the, let's see, bring this down a little bit. You got the Scout, and they are very similar, which I will talk about more here in a little bit. They're very similar, but the Scout feels, or the Vector feels way bigger. And then I also have everybody's favorite, put this away, everybody's favorite, the Benchmade Bug Out. And this will probably be my constant size comparison knife, just because everybody knows what a Bug Out's like, especially if you're shopping up here, you've had a Bug Out, most likely. But a little bit bigger than the Bug Out, not a ton, kind of a little bit on each end. About the same height, tallness as a Bug Out. It's got a little bit more curve at the back though. So we'll put this away. Since we have the Scout out though, I'll go ahead and talk about the comparison of these real quick. So if you know who Bradley Maris is, you probably know who Jason Guthrie is. So Jason Guthrie, he makes a Scout. He's been around for, I don't know, since like 2015 maybe. I don't know, he's been around for a long time. Well, he actually trained Bradley Maris. That's why the knives look very similar. They all have very similar construction all around, hardware, all the things. But a lot of people who've handled this knife might be looking to get these, or even if they haven't handled this knife, just know, even though these are very similar, this knife feels way smaller in hand, at least to me and a few other people that I know that have handled these, than this. I don't know, I think it's just maybe this area back here, yeah, it's probably that area back there. It just makes the knife feel a lot bigger. But this knife has probably, I think, a 3.3, maybe 3.4 inch blade. I'll leave all the specs down in the description. But this thing feels like a way bigger knife than it is, and it just goes so well in pocket. And this and my Oz are probably my two most carried knives. But I carry this so much just because, like, and it's on Teflon washers. It'll never get dirty, and for that reason, it feels like a big knife, even though it's small. It feels like I can conquer the world. He does some liner locks, but most of them are frame locks that he does, and I actually prefer that. This is number 26, and he's gotten a lot better. Actually, when I was at Blade Show, I handled probably number 75 or so, and while this one is smooth, and you can tell, nice and smooth, right? Okay, it's not drop shut though. Okay, I mean that's this thing's not centered perfectly, don't get me wrong, but that's about as good as you're gonna get. I mean, they're, at least on this one, on the newer one that I handled, it was a lot more drop shut, but they're not gonna be perfect. If you've ever seen Cap City Creations on Instagram, you'll see he has a tie one. I don't know what number his is, but even his, I mean, they're never gonna be drop shut. But for me, it doesn't matter. I know some people it will, but that's part of the frame lock and full custom deal you're just gonna have to live with. I like the thumb stud. I think it's a tie connector stud, looks like it. I don't know which one it'd be, but it's just held in by a T6. I mentioned this on the Scout video, that all the hardware on this is T6, which is a love-hate. I typically hate T6 stuff, but everything on here is just well done. Like, even though it is T6, it's all well done, and it's not going to strip on you, so I'm okay with it, and I like only having to deal with one driver. Works out, I'm okay with the T6. This is the Harpoon Tanto. I think all his Tantos are Harpoon. I think all his blades actually might be Harpoon. No, he has a drop point that's not Harpoon, but this is the Harpoon Tanto, and I hate Tanto knives, I really do, as far as almost any other knife, but for some reason, this is the only configuration I want on a Vector. It has to be a Tanto. Like, this knife just looks awesome. I absolutely love it. And the Tanto works really well because you can use this edge. This is the edge, obviously, you're going to use most of the time. And then I use this for scraping stuff sometimes. Don't use it a ton, though. Maybe, like, sometimes, like, I'm stabbing into a piece of mail and I don't want to go crazy all the way in. Like, I'll kind of just stab the tip of this thing in there and slice it. But for the most part, yeah, you use this edge. I'm trying to think a few other things I wanted to touch on. The only thing I would change, actually, I wouldn't change anything design-wise on this entire knife. I would maybe do a T8 or T10, T15 pivot, but like I just said, everything's being T6 and nothing's like bad quality, so I don't really have a problem with it. I would maybe change that, and then I didn't spec this one. I would actually do purple carbon instead of the blue. But as far as actually changing stuff on this knife, I wouldn't change anything. I talked about this in the Jason Guthrie video, the Scout video. Pocket clip, incredible. It's literally the perfect pocket clip for me. Like, it's not deep carry, but I don't really care. I mean, it's pretty close, but the retention on the Vector and Scout pocket clips is absolutely perfect. And the ramp, I don't know if you can see that, the ramp is great. It's not like a crazy over aggressive ramp. Like, you're not gonna be walking by stuff and just absolutely scraping the crap out of stuff, because it's got like a, you know, with like a crazy ramp on some knives. But it's perfect. Like, I would not change a single thing about this clip. I think they've done well. They're perfect retention. Doesn't, like, it just barely snags on pants, like, to where you want, but it's not going to fall out. Like I was talking about the blade shape a second ago, they have also a drop point and then drop point poon. I think these knives look a little funny without the poon. Like, even if you get the drop point, I feel like you have to have it because this just looks correct, and without, if you look at pictures of them, they look kind of funky. I don't know. I've heard the poon actually works a lot better, but for me, the Tanto, just those looks, or the drop point works a lot better on this knife as far as actually using it. But I mean, the Tanto just looks so much better, so I'm okay. I wouldn't have it in the drop point. I'm trying to think. Oh, something I mentioned in the Scout video is these knives are insanely slicey. If you are someone who wants to constantly use a knife and, you know, runs it to the very end to where, you know, it's going to get dull. I actually had this thing dull for a while and didn't even realize it. I didn't realize it till I sold it. I actually sold this knife a while ago and ended up getting it back. But when I sold it, the new buyer told me, he's like, hey man, it's dull. You know, couldn't cut paper. I didn't realize. I had been using this thing for 3-4 months with it being dull most likely. But it's so thin and like ridiculously slicey that I never noticed, because these things, like, however he grinds them, however thin, I'll actually have to measure it. Like, they will be slicey forever, even being dull. If you're slicing through cardboard, mail, you know, your normal things. You know, if you're trying to cut paper perfectly, I guess it ended up being dull. But yeah, these things are wild. I apologize if you hear shots in the distance. I live in the country and we're outside, so, you know, you'll hear that. Lockup on this thing's great. That was another problem this thing had originally, was some lockup problems. I don't know if it was caused by the new buyer forcing it to fail lock, but this is the only one I've ever seen that ever had a problem. So lockup is good. I mean, put all my force on there and it's not gonna go. He has these in the carbon like this. He has micarta, and I know he does tie. The tie ones look fantastic as well as the carbon. And then everything he does, I believe, is hand satin. He just like Jason, has to be hand satin or Damasteel, and I think the Damasteel's polished, obviously. And then everything's M390 if it's, you know, the normal blade. I love his jimping. I don't think, let me see. Yeah, the Scout has just like standard jimping, which is okay, don't get me wrong, it's good, but like my hand never goes on it. And I guess same really for the Vector as well. My hand never really goes on the jimping, but I love that the jimping isn't normal. Like, it's the 333. It just, I don't know, it works. I think it works like it's supposed to, kinda, for the most part, but I feel like it's more design. But like, I just love the design. Yeah, I guess, yeah, you never really need it just because your hand goes all the way to the poon. But this thing, like, for me, fits great in hand. You kind of there, and then just choke up. It works great. I know people sometimes care about this grip. I don't know why, unless you're fighting or stabbing something. You're not really going to cut in this. Maybe you will. I don't know. I don't. But yeah, this knife is incredible. This is, I talked about it in my collection review video, but this is like probably my second most carried knife other than my Oz. Actually, it has to be. Like, I've carried this thing for the last 2 weeks, ever since September started. Is it September? Yeah, September started. This thing, I absolutely love this knife. It's a beater, kind of, for me. And if I was to sell everything, this would definitely be one of the knives I keep, one of the 3 or 4 that I keep, just because great knife. Never going to have a problem with it, other than the 2 that were, one, it was, you know, I guess it wasn't even 2 problems. One, I sold it and it wasn't sharp and I didn't realize because I'm an idiot. And then the other one being, this one actually had lock failure, like I mentioned before, which don't know if it was user, you know, caused, but regardless, it had lock failure. It doesn't now. And this is the only one I've ever seen having problems. So it could just be a fluke. Maybe all his new ones are fine. Let's see, did I miss anything else? This thing runs on Teflon washers. So if Teflon washers anger you, you know, you're not going to want this knife. I don't see a problem. Like I showed in the Scout video, his newer ones are a lot smoother. His newer ones are probably, yeah, his newer ones are about this smooth. This one's an older one, so it's not as smooth, but Teflon washers, doesn't have brass, doesn't have bearings. If that, or bronze, not brass. If that bothers you, don't go for this. Trying to think. Oh, hey, it's a user, it's fine. Yeah, I think that's it. This is a fantastic knife. If you're looking at getting a Scout, but you don't want to pay like the $1,500 or, you know, whatever these things are going for now, roughly $1,500. I've seen these going for like $1,100, which is under table right now. Because I think table on this is $1,300. I think it's $1,300. Like, this knife for $1,100 is probably the best knife you're going to get for $1,100, in my personal opinion. Especially if you want to use a knife every day. I use the crap out of this thing. Cap City uses the crap out of his. Like, these things are, as far as customs go, probably the best users. This and the Oz Rosie, which anymore, I don't know if you can consider his customs, all the newer ones he's doing. But, yeah, so I think I've rambled enough in this, just like I do in everything. I would definitely suggest getting one of these. And if you do, please tag me on Instagram or something, because I love seeing people carrying these. And Bradley, that's another thing I want to mention right before we go. When I had problems with mine, he paid for absolutely everything to be warranted. Absolutely incredibly nice guy. He was, you know, so apologetic and wanted everything to get fixed right away. Paid for everything. Super insanely nice guy. Hopefully I get on his books one day. I can get the same thing, but in purple carbon. But yeah, it's always nice when the maker is super nice and, you know, cares about his work. So, like I said, I've rambled enough. Please go get one of these. If you're on the fence about one, just buy it. This thing's awesome. Love it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.